All right, recording in three, two, and one.
Look, you confused? You need guidance? Talk to another writer.
Ooh,
Jesus, throw a rock in here. You'll hit one. And do me a favor, Fink. Throw it hard.
fuck, I have no idea what you're talking about. Welcome to episode 188 of Nerdery Murdery.
Big 188. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the good and the bad, and the nerd and the murd. Um, two movies I watched both around Christmas, and one of them is going to become a staple for Christmas now. It's Red One.
Mhm.
That is super, super cute.
Yeah, it's fun.
I loved Red One. Miranda didn't. She didn't really like it, which I was kind of surprised about. I thought it was really cool. I liked The Rock, um, and I think Chris Evans was great in it.
Chris
And
Evans was the best part. Him and J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons is awesome as Santa Claus. I love it. Um, see Red One if you haven't. The other one saw actually pretty much a night later is Carry On. I
Oh
like Tart.
yeah, I was looking at some stuff on Carry On.
I like Tartan Egerton. Egerton. I love Jason Bateman, and Carry On was really, really good. Nice, good suspense show. I highly recommend that. Tartan Egerton is just a really good young actor. I've loved him in both The Kingsman and The Golden Circle.
Yeah, he played Elton John too, didn't he? In that
Yeah,
big Elton
in
John
Rocket
film.
Man. In
Yeah.
Rocket Man, he was brilliant in that. That was awesome. So go check those two out. Those are really two good ones to check out. I did want to say though that now that we're in 2025, 2025 is looking to be the year of Marvel Comics. Um, Coming up, we have Captain America in February, Daredevil Born Again in March, the Thunderbolts in May, which looks to kind of be Marvel's answer to Suicide Squad. Ironheart in June, which looks to be a TV series. Fantastic Four in July. Looking forward to that. Eyes of Wakanda in August. Marvel Zombies in October.
Oh, they're doing a Marvel Zombies? Nice.
Yes. And Wonder Man in December with Ben Kingsley reprising his role as Trevor Flattery. Trevor Flattery.
Triple flattery.
Lots of Marvel stuff coming out this year. I'm super excited. I'm really excited about Captain America: Brave New World, with Harrison Ford taking over as Thunderbolt Ross, and apparently becoming the Red Hulk. So I think it's going to be a really cool year for Marvel. I hope. I really hope. A lot of people are saying that Marvel has gone downhill and it's not as good. I think these are going to be some good stuff that's coming out this year. So. Um, did I don't know if you were aware or not, and I hate it because I completely missed it Friday night. I meant to go outside um, to check it out, but SpaceX is near me.
Is it really?
Yeah, Boca Chica, where SpaceX launches out of, is like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes from me.
Okay.
Um,
Well, it makes sense. I mean, you need kind of a big flat area, and that's a big flat area.
yeah, yeah, and we can generally feel SpaceX from the
Oh,
house.
when they launch.
Yeah. I wanted to get out. It really honestly, if I wish we had planned it out better, because what I'd like to do is go out to the island, out to Padre, and watch
Hmm.
it from there. It's supposed to be pretty incredible watching it from Padre Island, but SpaceX launched on Friday, and I completely missed it. I meant to go outside and watch it, and I never even heard it, so I guess it went off. Um, did you see there was two bombings this week? New
Uh,
Orleans on Wednesday.
well, I
And
think someone ran a car into a crowd of people.
yes, he had a bomb. I'm sorry, he
Yeah.
had a bomb that was supposed to detonate. He ran into a crowd of people.
And then
Um,
someone, well, it wasn't so much a bomb, it was a a Cybertruck loaded with fireworks that went off in front of the Trump Towers. Like, well, somebody's trying to send a message.
well,
I think.
they're not sure if these are related or not. The one in New Orleans, which killed 14 people, sadly,
Mhm,
um, was a former military person who had an ISIS flag in their vehicle.
mhm.
The one in Las Vegas it was an active duty Army Green Beret.
Hmm.
So they don't know if they're related or not. They haven't given the reasoning
And
behind the Las Vegas one yet.
all I gotta say about this is, look, if you if you're trying if you're trying to fix things with terror, and I'm not saying you can or you can't, but if you're doing it, you're heading at common people in the streets. You're aiming in the wrong direction.
Uh, Well, Chelsea and I were talking about that too. That's just it. They don't have a specific goal in mind except for causing terror.
Mm.
You know, the people who have specific goals in mind, those are the foreign powers, the foreign intelligence that's doing the cyber attacks.
Hmm.
You had the
And I don't
most.
think people realize how many cyber attacks a day we get. It's in the millions
Oh yeah, yeah,
every single day.
right. That we combat. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. That we stop every single day. But you had the most recent security flaw that was that the Chinese got into at the Treasury Department. All they got was unclassified documents. That was just to go find a hole.
Yeah.
That was to find a hole in, because once
Yep.
they get a hole in that's not protected, that's when they're going to go against infrastructure.
Mhm.
It's a dangerous time. Very, very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean,
I don't mean to get all political, but
no, no, no. Well, I mean, we try to stay away from politics unless it's Star Wars. But I mean, honestly, the Russians, there's more Russian dirty money in our politics on both sides of the aisle
oh yeah.
than any other foreign actor. And honestly, if this were 40 years ago, half of Congress would be put in irons for treason.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Actually, I think you got to go a little more than 40, because I think you're going back to the McCarthyism. It's a little more than 40 years at this point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
But
because 40 years, my friend, 40 years, we were in high school.
1984. Yeah, no, I think they'd still take the Russians out in 84. I'm sorry. At this point, it would be 1985.
That's that's so funny when I think about that. 40 years ago, we were in high school.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I wasn't in high school yet 40 years ago.
I was.
I was
Well,
in junior high.
yeah, no,
85?
I started the 84, 85 year. Um, so yeah, uh, it's just speaking of that.
Donald had actually was in his first year of college, the 84, 85 year. So,
Yeah, yeah. Um, speaking of that, just kind of funny. I started a group on Facebook just a couple weeks ago, just reuniting a bunch of my buddies from ROTC from high school. Um, the group of buddies that we all went to your high school to cause havoc.
yes, you
Um,
did. Yes, you did.
that's been kind of cool. Just reuniting with a bunch of those people. There have been some really cool pictures that have gone out there. We were so young. We were just babies. Just looking at those pictures, we were just babies.
Babies.
Uh, yeah. Now I'm old and I don't hardly sleep at night. Thank you, Magic Mind, for helping me stay awake every day. I love that.
Nice.
Um, make sure don't forget your Magic Mind discount you can get through us, magicmind.com/nerdery20. Um,
Hey.
um, that that stuff keeps me going every day. Um, that's the hard part about getting old. You're tired all the time, but you can't sleep. So Magic Mind has been a boon for that. But boon? That's not the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, boom.
Boon? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you ready to take on over on the nerdery side of the house?
Yeah, today we're going to talk about three forgotten Coen brothers movies.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, and The Man Who Wasn't There.
Hey, outstanding. I haven't seen any of these three.
I can't believe as many times as I wore a video cassette of Barton Fink out. I'm surprised you haven't seen it.
You've talked about it for many years. I just never watched it. These I don't know why. These are just three that never crossed my path.
They were kind of their. They would have like a big movie and then they do a little movie, and then they'd have like a big movie and they do a little movie. These are the little movies. Um, so Joel Daniel Cohen and Ethan Jesse Cohen, together known as the Cohen brothers, are an American filmmaking duo. Their films span many genres and styles, which they frequently subvert or parody. Their most acclaimed works include Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, Fargo, The Big Lebowski, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Art Thou, No Country for Old Men, A Serious Man, True Grit, and Inside Llewellyn Davis.
Fargo is brilliant. Fargo is
Oh,
absolutely brilliant, and including the TV series.
yeah, which they had a hand in making.
Yes.
Matter of fact, one of the stories kind of parallels one of the movies we're going to talk about, which is Miller's Crossing, the TV series,
Hmm.
the one that takes place back in the 40s.
Hmm.
That's kind of going on at the same time as the Miller's Crossing movie. Um, so the brothers generally write, direct, and produce their films jointly, although due to DGA regulations, Joel receives sole director credit while Ethan receives sole production credit until The Lady Killers, from which point on they would be credited together as directors and producers. They also shared editing credits under the alias Roderick James. So anytime you see something that says Roderick James, that's them. The duo started directing separately in the 2020s, resulting in Joel's The Tragedy of Macbeth and Ethan's Jerry Lee Lewis Trouble in Mind and Drive Away Dolls. They have been nominated for 13 Academy Awards together, plus one individual nomination for each. Both won Best Original Screenplays for Fargo and Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay for No Country for Old Men. The duo also won the Palme d'Or for Barton Fink at the 1991 Cannes Film Festival. Today, again, we're going to talk about Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, and the Man Who Wasn't There. So, as I said before, they'll do like a really big movie, and then they'll do a little side movie. I picked up on them. The first thing I ever saw was Raising Arizona, and I thought it was great. And then I found Barton Fink, and I thought that was amazing. And then I caught Miller's Crossing later on, and I didn't realize that they also did serious stuff because I thought they were a
Hmm.
comedy too. Miller's Crossing is a 1990 American neo-noir gangster film written, directed, and produced by Joel and Ethan Cohen. It stars Gabriel Byrne, Marcia Gay Harden, John Turturro, John Polito, J.E. Freeman, and Albert Finney. The plot concerns a power struggle between two rival gangs and how the protagonist, Tom Reagan, plays both sides against each other. In 2005, Time chose Miller's Crossing as one of the 100 greatest films made since the inception of the periodical. Time critic Richard Corliss called it a noir with a touch so light the film seems to float on the breeze like the frisbee of a fedora sailing through the forests. So, how the movie what they mean by that is how the movie opens. It opens with a fedora hat being thrown in the air and landing on the ground and some violence happening. The film also closes with the hat spinning through the air, dropping on the ground in the forest, and you get to see it from somebody else's that play out from somebody else's perspective. It takes place in 1929. Tom Reagan is the right-hand man of the Irish mobster Leo O'Banion, a political boss who runs an unnamed U.S. city during Prohibition. Leo sets off a mob war when he extends protection to his girlfriend Vera's brother, a bookie named Bernie Birnbaum, who is skimming off the match-fixing scheme of Leo's rival, the Italian gangster Johnny Casper. The situation is further complicated by the fact behind Leo's back, Verna is also sleeping with Tom. Let me run down the cast real quick. Gabriel Byrne as Tom Reagan, Albert Finney as Liam Leo O'Banion, John Turturro as Bernie Birnbaum, Marcia Gay Harden as Verna Birnbaum, John Polito as Giovanni Gasparo or Johnny Casper, J.E. Freeman as Eddie Dane, Steve Buscemi as Mink Laurie, Michael Jeter as Adolf, Mike Starr as Frankie, Oleg Krupa as Tad, John McCannell or McConnell as Officer Brian, Al Mancini as Tic Tac, Michael Badalucco as Sal Casper's driver, and Frances McDormand as the mayor's secretary, and Sam Raimi as the snickering gunman. Um, so yeah, there's all these different plot points that are going on during that this whole thing, and Tom Reagan is playing both ends against the middle. So all this is going on, and again, it's bookended by that hat scene, which is brilliant. And it's not in black and white. They wanted to do a film de noir, but in color. But all the colors are muted, like it was shot in Wisconsin. So it's like every all the trees are dead. It's gray. It's overcast. There are no bright colors in the film, but it is in color. It's brilliant. And if you've never seen Miller's Crossing, at least watch the scenes we've got in our YouTube playlist. You'll see what I'm talking about. Um, just stark, brilliant, and beautiful. In that Fargo series, the season with
Season
this,
4.
yeah, with Chris Rock.
Yep.
Yeah, the beginning of that is the Italian and Irish mobs basically fighting against each other. That's the Miller's Crossing thing.
It's not the Italian mob, it is the Irish mob, but it's the Irish mob and the black mob.
No, it's before that at the opening when the guy's young.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the yeah because that takes place like 20 years later.
Gotcha.
Because this takes place in like 1929.
I'm with you now.
So yeah, the first part of that when you see the kid who is he part of the Italian mob? Is he part of the Irish mob? What's going on? That and that was basically a callback to Bart Fink because the same thing's going on with Tom Reagan at the same time. In the early part of that young man's life. It's really interesting though. But while writing the screenplay, the Coen brothers tentatively titled the film "The Big Head," their nickname for Tom Reagan. The first image they conceived was that of a black hat coming to rest in a forest clearing, then a gust of wind lifts it into the air, sending it flying down an avenue of trees. This image closes the film's opening credit sequence. Because of the intricate, dense plot, the Coens suffered from writer's block with the script. They stayed with a close friend of theirs at the time, William Preston Robertson, in St. Paul, Minnesota, hoping that a change of scenery might help. And after watching Baby Boom one night, they returned to New York City and wrote Barton Fink in 3 weeks before resuming their Miller's Crossing screenplay. So Barton Fink and Miller's Crossing were written at the same time. The budget was reported by Film Industry Magazine as around 14 million, but the Coens have said the film cost substantially less than that. According to Paul Coughlin, the casting of Byrne allows for the psychological assurance, self-confidence, and icy demeanor to be physically reproduced in the sturdy and unruffled presence of the tall and lean actor. Tom is a man who walks behind a man, whispers in his ear. He's the brains behind Leo's operation. He's the heartless center of Miller's Crossing. Although he was a native Irishman playing a lieutenant to an Irish mobster, the Coens did not originally want Gabriel Byrne to use his own accent in the film. Byrne argued that his dialogue was structured in such a way that it was a good fit for his accent, and after he tried it, the Coens agreed. During casting, they originally envisioned Trey Wilson, who played Nathan Arizona in the previous film, Raising Arizona, as gangster boss Leo O'Banion. But 2 days before principal photography began, Trey Wilson passed away from a brain hemorrhage, and Finney was cast. A lot of people said that Albert Finney's portrayal of Leo was really nuanced and really brilliant, so they're kind of glad that he did. Not glad that Trey Wilson passed away, but that they went with Albert Finney. I would have liked to have seen Trey Wilson's portrayal of it because he brings a softness to his anger that I would have liked to have seen. Although Albert Finney was pretty good.
Albert Finney's great in everything.
Yeah, the Coens cast family and friends in minor roles. Sam Raimi, director and friend of the Coens, appeared as the snickering gunman at the Siege of the Sons of Erin social club, while Frances McDormand, Joe Cohen's wife, appears as the mayor's secretary. The role of the Swede was written for Peter Stormare, but he could not be cast since he was playing Hamlet. Um, so J.E. Freeman was cast, and the character was changed to the Dane, while Stormare went on to be featured in Fargo and The Big Lebowski. The city in which the story takes place is unidentified, but the film was shot in New Orleans as the Coen brothers were attracted to its look. Ethan Coen commented in an interview, there are whole neighborhoods here of nothing but 1929 architecture. New Orleans is sort of a depressed city. It hasn't been gentrified. There's a lot of architecture that hasn't been touched, storefront windows that haven't been replaced in the last 60 years. Principal photography ran from January 27th to April 28th, 1989. So, again, I'm going to borrow the pod bat machine. I saw Raising Arizona, and then I saw Barton Fink, and I saw these films out of order. Um, and I was like, oh my God, the Coen brothers are fucking brilliant. Oh, what is this? They did another one between Raising Arizona and Barton Fink. So I picked up Miller's Crossing, popped it in the VCR, and was just awestruck at how they could do a serious movie. Because again, I thought they were comedy people. I didn't know their first movie is Blood Simple, which is dark. Um, but they kind of interlace some comedy in there. Sam Raimi is funny in this. John Turturro is just this rat. He just plays a rat. Um, but the opening, the title sequence of the fedora being blown off its bed of fallen leaves in the forest, uh, was a homage to Jean-Pierre Melville's French crime film La Douleur. They also did some nods to The Godfather, because again, it was a crime film. Miller's Crossing quotes many gangster films and film noir. Many situation characters and dialogues are derived from the works of Dashiell Hammett, particularly his 1931 novel, The Glass Key, and there's some parallels between the two stories. Another important Hammett source was his 1929 novel, Red Harvest. The Third Man. They did open this at the New York Film Festival, um, but it was a box office failure at the time. Many people didn't know what to make of it because, again, this is right on the heels of Raising Arizona, which was this crazy crime comedy. But it did really, really well at the film festivals. And again, when it was picked up on video, that's when this movie blew up. Um, but as I said, while they were making this film, this dark, gritty film, or writing it, they also wrote Barton Fink, which is, yes, there's some crime involved. There's actually a serial killer involved in Barton Fink. You don't know he's a serial killer until right at the end. And he has a head in a box, um, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Um, but yeah, the aspect of Miller's Crossing, bookended by Brazen Arizona and Barton Fink, just tells you everything you need to know about the Coen brothers. You watch those three films and you'll be a fan. Anything they did after that, to me, seems like a variation on the theme of Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, and Barton Fink. That's and not to discount anything they did after that, because I've been following these guys since 1989. When I first picked up Raising Arizona, I was like, oh, what is this? Oh, this looks funny. Um, or it wouldn't have been 89. It would have been a little bit before that. But yeah,
I think so.
yeah. Yeah, because I think it was released in like 86 or 87. But yeah, it amazes me how they were able to do these things at the same time, and it's because they work so well together. It's like Sam Raimi's even said it in an interview. What's amazing about these two is they'll start talking, "Hey, remember that thing?" And the other one knows what he's talking about. He's like, "That's also the problem with the Coen brothers, is if you're not part of that lingo, it's hard to keep up with them because they
S-
know what they're talking about, so it's an inside language."
Speaking of Sam Raimi, write it down. You need to do an episode on Sam Raimi.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to talk about the Raimi brothers a lot because they're as in they're as intertwined with the Coen brothers as Bruce Campbell is with them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, And it's this Midwestern idea of, and they make these just incredible pictures. Um, so again, you got Miller's Crossing, and again, I would recommend anybody stopping down and going to see it. It's available on stream right now. Just sit down and watch it. Um, it is dark, um, but it is also a little funny in places. But it's shot beautifully, and it's a gangster movie. If you like gangster movies, you need to be watching Miller's Crossing. Um, but again, while they're writing Miller's Crossing, they wrote Barton Fink. It is a 1991 American black comedy, first written, produced, and edited and directed by the Cohen brothers. It is set in 1941. It stars John Turturro as the title role as a young New York City playwright who is hired to write scripts for a film studio in Hollywood, and John Goodman as Charlie Meadows, the insurance salesman who lives next door of the rundown Hotel Earl. The Coens wrote the screenplay for Barton Fink in 3 weeks while experiencing writer's block during the writing of Miller's Crossing. They began filming soon after Miller's Crossing was finished. The film is influenced by works of several earlier directors, particularly Roman Polanski's Repulsion and The Tenant. Barton Fink had its premiere at the Cannes Film Festival in May of 1991. In a rare sweep, it won the Palme d'Or as well as the awards for Best Director and Best Actor. Although the film was a box office bomb, only grossing $6 million against its $9 million budget, it received positive reviews and was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. Prominent themes of Barton Fink include the writing process, slavery and conditions of labor in creative industry, superficial distinctions between high culture and low culture, and the relationship of the intellectual with the common man. The diverse elements of the film have led to defy efforts as a genre classification. I kind of like that. With the work being variously referred to as film noir, a horror film, uh, Quincelorman, or a postmodernist film, and a buddy film. It contains various literary allusions and religious overtones, as well as references to many real-life people and events. The writers Clifford Odets and William Faulkner, of whom the characters Barton Fink and W.P. Mayhew, respectively, are often seen as fictional representations. Several features of the film narrative, particularly an image of a woman at the beach, recurs throughout, having sparked much commentary, and the Coens acknowledge that some intentional symbolic elements while denying an attempt to communicate any single message from the film. So, writer, uh, Broadway guy, who is very successful, gets hired to go to Hollywood. He feels like he's a bit of a sellout. They put him up in this hotel. He makes friends with this Bible salesman next to him, um, next door to him. There's always mosquitoes in his apartment. It's always, or his hotel. It's always very dark and run down, and it's always raining inside the hotel for some reason. It's always dripping. But it's in LA. He goes outside, goes to the movie studio, and everything is bright and sunshiny. He goes back to the hotel, dark, dank, and oppressive. And he can't figure out why. Um, Also, he's got this beautiful picture of this woman on a beach as part of a calendar, and he keeps looking at it, and he envisions different women he knows or he has met in that picture while this is going on. The whole time, he is trying to write a screenplay to sell to the movie people who hired him to come out there. He goes and talks to some other writers, and they can't. Um, None of them are interested in writing anymore. They're interested in either drinking, rough sex with a dominatrix, um, or trying to make money. They have no interest in writing anymore, and he doesn't understand why they hate their job. So the only person he can really talk to are the bellhop Chet, played deftly by Steve Buscemi, and that's the first thing I ever saw him in. He is incredible. And John Goodman, the Bible salesman that lives next door to him. And on the radio, the whole time you're hearing about this serial killer. Turns out, spoilers, but it was 40 years ago or 35 years ago. John Goodman, the Bible salesman, is the killer. He has a box with a woman's head in it. So the cast is John Turturro, as Barton Fink. John Goodman as Charlie Meadows, or Carl Madman Munt. Michael Lerner as Jack Lipnick. Judy Davis as Audrey Taylor. John Mahoney as W.P. Bill Mayhew. Tony Shalhoub as Ben Geisler. John Polito as Lou Breeze. Steve Buscemi as Chet. David Warlow as Garland Stanford. Richard Portnow as Detective Mastriani. And Christopher Murney as Detective Deutsch. And Frances McDormand as a stage actress who is uncredited. Um, so again, they wrote this script in 3 weeks, but they were also experimenting with ideas with Miller's Crossing, which is why it's also Miller's Crossing set in 1929 up to the first couple of years of the 1930s. This one's set in 1941, right before the war. So they were already in that headspace when they wrote Barton Fink. Um, but again, it's not so much that the acting is great, the script is great, it is funny, it is dark. Um, the way they shoot this movie, how they run down the hallways of this dank ass hotel, um, which appears to be 1,000 years old and just built at the same time. It's really bizarre. It's like the running down the hallways of the Overlook Inn in The Shining. I can't explain it any better. Um, or like a David Lynch movie. It's like when they go to the dank parts of town in Blue Velvet. Same thing. The music is great. The scratchy radio in the background going off is great. Everything about this movie is incredible, and nobody went to go see it. It played on the film circuit, but this became a cult movie. Um, when you say the Cohen brothers to got people who are into cult movies, this is what they think of. They don't think about, well, they might, but usually it's not Fargo that they're thinking of or The Big Lebowski. It's this and Miller's Crossing. Um, and they started it in June of 1990. And they just finished Miller's Crossing. Um, this is the first time they used that Roderick Janes for the editor. Uh, and again, the whole point is the hotel is also in the same Art Deco style as everything else. But again, when you go outside, it's clean and sunny. But inside inside the hotel, it's always raining. Um, so and then the hotel burns down, and John Goodman is running around going crazy, trying to kill everybody. But Barton, because Barton is his friend, and he's a true. How does he say it? I think he's you're a true artist, Barton. So am I. Um, but you've got all of that going on. Kind of a small cast. Um, so yeah, I mean, I kind of got lost in the sauce there, but I can't recommend Barton Fink enough. It's amazing, but it's not a big movie. It's a little movie. It's quiet, even though there's a serial killer and a hotel burns down. But it's weird. It's weird. It's period piece, and the suits are phenomenal. Everybody's the costuming down to everybody you see on the street. That's what blows me away is like, oh, when I talk about early 1940s, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all of that. It's amazing. And again, I've been talking about Barton Fink for years, but again, it's not. I can see where it's not for everybody, but it's really funny, um, and dark. But yeah, it's that. I want to say the color of the inside of the Hotel Earl is painted in depression. I don't know what shade that is, but it's depression. And everything outside is gleaming and white with palm trees. It's amazing. Um, I'm surprised you haven't seen Barton Fink. Oh, I can't hear you.
I'm here. I haven't seen any of these three.
The next one is a neo noir or a film de noir. The Man Who Wasn't There is 2001 crime film written, directed, produced, and co-edited by Joel and Ethan Cohen. It stars Billy Bob Thornton, Frances McDormand, Michael Badalucco, Richard Jenkins, Scarlett Johansson, John Polito, Tony Shalhoub, and James Gandolfini. This film also, I also noticed that all three of these are period pieces. I didn't realize that until just now. The film is set in 1949 and tells the story of Ed Crane, a withdrawn barber who leads an ordinary life in a small California town with his wife, who he suspects is having an affair with her boss. Crane's situation changes when a stranger comes to the barber shop and offers him the opportunity to join him as a partner in a promising new business. In exchange for an investment of $10,000. Drawn to the idea, Crane plans to blackmail his wife's lover for the money. The film is black and white and employs voiceover narration, honoring classic film noir. It differs by including classical music, setting the plot in a small town and featuring a protagonist from outside the criminal underworld. The Coens began developing the idea from a 1940s haircut poster they saw while filming The Hudsucker Proxy. The plot was influenced by James N. Cain's crime novel, primarily Double Indemnity, The Postman Always Rings Twice, and Mildred Pierce. Aesthetically, The Man Who Wasn't There was inspired by films from the 1940s and 50s, including A Shadow of a Doubt, along with science fiction films and documentaries of that period. Um, yeah, so we've talked about before. I said we were going to talk about it. We talked about in three science fiction films you should see how people used bits and sets and pieces from Forbidden Planet. This movie uses them too, just
Hmm.
because they're cool looking. For no other reason, just because they're cool looking. Um, Filming took place on location in California and was shot in color and later converted to black and white. But man, it looks good. It's a sharp, sharp black and white. Um, the Austin Chronicle referred to it as one of the best films of the year, and the National Board of Review included it among its top 10 films of the year and awarded Thornton Best Actor. So you got the Ed Crane, the Ed Crane character, um, trying to frame his wife's lover, um, to get involved in this business deal. And again, the idea of writing the film starring a barber was inspired by a poster which the Coen brothers saw while filming The Hudsucker Proxy. We filmed the scene in a barber shop, and there was a poster on the wall showing all different 1940s hairstyles. Recall Joel Cohen. It was a fixture on the set, and we were always looking at it. So we started thinking about the guy who actually did the haircuts, and the story began to take shape. It really evolved from the haircut poster. The directors took the title of the film from an 1899 poem written by William Hughes Mearns entitled Ant Antigonish, and they chose it in reference to the character of the barber to reflect his emotional emptiness. Um, it's the first line of the poem is, yesterday upon the stair I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wish he'd go away. Yesterday going up the stairs I saw a man who wasn't there. I didn't see him again today either. I want to see him disappear. Um, so again, they took a lot of things from Mildred Pierce and Double Indemnity and The Postman Always Rings Twice. Um, the novels were narrated by down and out working class men during the Great Depression, but they wanted to do this right after the Depression, where things are going pretty well. Um, in the early 1940s, because we're getting out of the Depression, and um, people are able to do some other stuff. I also took some stuff from the Asphalt Jungle, A Touch of Evil, Kiss Me Deadly, The Blue Dahlia, Out of the Past, The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. They started writing this script in the mid 1990s after filming The Big Lebowski, because again, they got the idea from the Hudsucker Proxy. The brothers moved to Ireland, where Frances McDormand was working, to continue writing, and the Coens sent the script to producers Eric Fellner and Tim Beaver, a working title, and they intended to start production in 1999 by taking advantage of the availability of George Clooney. They dedicated themselves to "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" and they continued the Man Who Wasn't There project, kind of in the background doing pre-production because they wanted to run with George Clooney. The characters wrote the characters of Doris and Frank for McDormand and Michael Badalucci, respectively. The directors grabbed Thornton, an actor with whom they had not worked before, for the title role. He accepted the role before reading the script. I knew it was going to be good. There are certain people you can't go wrong with. And then the Coens convinced James Gandolfini to be the boss. Joe Polito and Tony Shalhoub, two other actors already known to the Coens, joined the cast, followed by Adam Alexi Molly, Catherine Borowitz, and Richard Jenkins. And they also got Scarlett Johansson because, again, she wanted to work with the Coen brothers. Who doesn't? Um, Jenkins initially declined, and they were going to use Bill Murray, but Jenkins uh, doubled back and was like, "Yeah, no, I want to do this." And they filmed it in 2000 in California. It was taken with the camera at eye level with normal lenses and long depth of field compared to older American film noir. Deakins used a wide range of grays and attempted to create low contrast without many strong shadows, using fewer and larger lights. The reason he overexposed the film light wise was, again, because he knew he was going to turn it into black and white. The Man Who Wasn't There grossed 7.5 million in the United States and Canada and 11.4 million in other territories for a worldwide total of 18.9 million against its $20 million budget. The film was the Coen brothers' worst performing film at the box office since The Hudsucker Proxy, and some speculated that the poor returns were because the film was in black and white. In its opening weekend in the United States, it grossed $664,000 from 39 theaters across the US. Um, Again, I can't say enough about this film. This is a film de noir. Well, I don't think I would have put it in our film de noir list of masterpieces, which we did before. But it would definitely run in the top because I think we only did five. This would be like in the top 10 because it's beautiful, it's brilliant. It looks like it was shot in 1949. The only reason you wouldn't think it's 1949 is because you recognize the actors' faces. But yeah, it's brilliant. It's beautiful. So well shot, so well done. And again, with the Coen brothers, they have a lot of stuff out there that people have seen and that are crazy about. Again, they'll do a great big movie and then they'll do a little one. These are the little ones, the ones that not everybody has seen. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think these are some of the best that they have done. Not discounting Big Lebowski or Fargo, which is brilliant, but Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, and The Man Who Wasn't There are every bit as good. They're just a little more experimental. Actually, Miller's Crossing isn't that experimental. It's a other than the opening and closing hat shot, it's a gangster flick. They just did a little art house opening and closing, and I wonder if that's why it got the nod as an art house picture because the opening and closing shots with the hat flying. But that's about it for three Coen Brothers movies. A lot of people haven't seen.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I need to give those a watch, especially listening to the actors and actresses that are in those.
Oh yeah, oh the casts are all phenomenal.
Yeah, I need to give those a look. So I may do that, but I appreciate that.
Sure.
All right, with that, we'll step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off Wikipedia, Medium, the Death Penalty Information Center, Pew Research Online, and BBC News. And this is the murder of Vickie DeBlieux. DeBlieux.
Vickie DeBlieux.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name right or not. It's Deblieux.
Oh, like
So
a French spelling.
yes, yes. Um, So forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that last name, but on the night of February 21st, 1994, 37-year-old Vickie Lynn DeBlieux, better known as Vickie, was dropped off by a friend near Chattanooga, Tennessee, and began hitchhiking to her mother's house in West Monroe, Louisiana. That's a long hitchhike.
Yeah.
That was the last time she was seen alive. While she was passing through Jefferson County, Alabama, Vickie encountered a group of four young men who were all drinking alcohol and using drugs when they first met her. Uh, the four young men, 19-year-old Carrie Dale Grayson, 17-year-old Trace Royal Duncan, 16-year-old Louis Christopher Maggione, and 17-year-old Kenneth Loggins, actually known as Kenny Loggins.
Kenny Loggins,
Not that Kenny Loggins.
meet me halfway. Sorry.
They offered her a ride to Louisiana. However, while they were driving in their van, the group deviated from the route and instead took Vickie to a wooded area on the pretense of picking up another vehicle.
It's W.
W. Okay.
W.
After reaching the forest, the four boys began to drink and threw their beer bottles at Vickie, who tried to escape by running. The boys managed to restrain her and tackle her to the ground, and they started to physically assault Vickie by kicking her repeatedly all over her body.
Good God.
They noticed that she was still alive, and so Grayson and one of his younger friends, the before mentioned Kenny Loggins, stood on Vickie's throat, who gurgled blood and later died as a result in the early hours of February 22nd, 1994. After murdering Vickie, the four kept her luggage and body inside the back of a pickup truck and drove to Bald Rock Mountain, where they pilfered her ring and clothes and sexually abused her body before throwing it off a cliff.
After a day?
Yep. The body was left behind while the young men drove the truck to Pell City to clean the vehicle and remove bloodstains. They also disposed of Vickie's luggage in the woods. The four drove back to Birmingham, where Mangione was dropped off home before the rest. Grayson, Duncan, and Loggins returned to Bald Rock Mountain, where the trio mutilated Vickie's corpse by stabbing and cutting the corpse 180 times and amputated her fingers, thumb, and part of her lung. The trio then spent the night in Birmingham, falling asleep in the truck. And the next morning, Grayson's girlfriend found the three sleeping, covered in mud and blood. And when his girlfriend probed them about the blood stains, Grayson lied to her and said they all got the blood from a dog. I think it's just as bad.
Mm-hmm.
On February 26, 1994, 4 days after she was murdered, whatever remained of Vickie's body was discovered by three rock climbers.
Ah,
I know,
oh my God. Oh, hey, look, it's a grit. Oh my God.
it's always got to be hikers and stuff. An autopsy later revealed that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to Vickie's head and asphyxiation as a possible contributing factor. Vickie's face was so badly shattered that she had to be recognized from a previous X-ray of her spine.
Ooh.
Of course, her fingers were gone, so they couldn't do fingerprinting. Um, Investigators revealed that the four teenagers were identified as suspects after one of them displayed a severed finger to a friend and bragged about the murder. Dumbass. By April of 94, all four were arrested and charged for the torture and murder of Vickie. Between November 95 and February 96, the four offenders were tried in separate state courts in Alabama for the murder of Vickie. On November 2nd, 95, 3 days before his 18th birthday, Trace Duncan became the first out of the four to be convicted of murder, and the jury recommended that he should be sentenced to death. He was scheduled to officially be sentenced in January of 96. Louis Mangione was the second offender to be convicted on November 18th, 95. However, unlike Duncan, he was spared the death sentence after the jury recommended that he be sentenced to the minimum punishment of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Kenneth Loggins was initially set to stand trial in September of 95, but his trial was delayed due to the psychologist failing to submit a report on time to determine Loggins' mental state at the time, and it was rescheduled for November 27th, 95. Carrie Dale Grayson was the final member of the four to be tried for Vickie's murder, and his trial began on January 29th, 96. During his trial, a forensic psychologist testified that Grayson had bipolar disorder and was experiencing a manic state during the murder. However, the psychologist also emphasized that Grayson was still able to distinguish between right and wrong at the time, and his actions could not be excused solely due to his mental health condition. Loggins, who pleaded innocent by insanity, was subsequently convicted in December of that same year, and among the 12-member jury, 10 jurors recommended the death penalty for Loggins. Grayson ended up being convicted on February 2nd, 96, and 6 days later, on February 8th, the jury deliberated for 15 minutes before they unanimously returned with the recommendation of a death sentence for Grayson.
He read off the charges. Yeah, guilty. Yeah, guilty.
The
And then
prosec
placed a lunch order and then walked out and did it and then went and had lunch.
yeah. The prosecution later sought to have all four face the death penalty for murdering Vickie and highlighted the brutality of the crime and gruesomeness of Vickie's death made it deserving for all four boys to be executed. A sentencing trial for all four was scheduled to take place on March 8th, 1996. On March 8th, Circuit Judge Mike McCormick followed the jury's recommendations in the four accused respective cases. He spared Mangione the death sentence in order that he be jailed for life without the possibility of parole, while sentenced the remaining three, Grayson, Duncan, and Loggins, to death. In 1998, Louis Mangione's appeal against his conviction and sentence was dismissed by the Court of Criminal Appeals of Alabama. In 99, Grayson was one of the five condemned to lose their appeals in the Court of Criminal Appeals of Alabama. Duncan also lost his appeal in 99 to the same court. And also in 1999, the court also rejected the appeal of Loggins. Loggins lost his second appeal in 2000 to the Alabama Supreme Court. And in 2001, they once again upheld and therefore finalized the death sentences of Grayson, Duncan, and Loggins after dismissing their appeals. In 2005, after the U.S. Supreme Court heard the Roper versus Simmons case, a majority ruling of 5-4 formally decreed it was unconstitutional to execute offenders who were below 18 at the time of their crimes. This ruling made an impact on many cases of juveniles in death row, including Kenneth Loggins and Trace Duncan for Vickie's murder, as these offenders were allowed to apply for a reduction of their sentences to death sentences to life imprisonment, given that both of them were minors at the time of the murder. So in April of 2005, Trace Duncan's death sentence was commuted to life in jail without chance for parole. However, because of Miller versus Alabama, which prohibits life sentences without parole, both have the possibility of parole after 35 years. On January 28, 2006, an Alabama state court allowed the resentencing plea of Kenneth Loggins and commuted his death sentence to life without parole. Loggins was the 13th juvenile on death row to have his sentence reduced since 2005. 5 years after his resentencing, Kenneth Loggins filed for an appeal in 2011 for a further reduction of his life sentence, stating that sentencing minors to life without parole is unconstitutional, but it was dismissed. Eventually, in 2012, Alabama revised its life imprisonment laws for juveniles through the landmark ruling of Miller versus Alabama, making it unconstitutional for juveniles to serve mandatory life sentences without parole, and new laws allowed judges to decide whether or not to grant juveniles serving life sentences the possibility of parole, including the past court cases prior to 2012. Many of the juveniles serving life without parole, including Loggins, Duncan, and Mangione, applied for their life terms to carry the possibility of release. After a series of resentencing hearings, both Mangione and Duncan were each granted the chance for parole after a minimum of 35 years, and their earliest parole hearings would take place in 2029. Loggins, however, whose hearing took place in 2018, was denied the chance of parole, and hence his sentence of life without parole is still maintained by the courts. The resentencing of both Duncan and Loggins left Carrie Dale Grayson, who was 19 at the time of the murder, the only convict of the case to remain on death row for murdering Vickie. After exhausting all avenues of appeal in the state process in 2006, Grayson brought forward his case to federal court and filed a plea of habeas corpus in the Northern District of Alabama, but the motion was rejected in September of 2009. A year later, in 2010, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals rejected Grayson's appeal, and another year later, the U.S. Supreme Court ultimately dismissed Grayson's final appeal and confirmed his death sentence. Originally, Grayson was scheduled to be put to death by lethal injection on April 12th, 2012, but his execution was postponed by the Alabama Supreme Court after his lawyers appealed to challenge the change of drug use in lethal injection protocols in Alabama. In 2015, Grayson was one of 5 death row prisoners who filed a lawsuit opposing the state's authority to bid a bid to administer larger doses of midazolam in lethal injection executions. While Grayson was still incarcerated on death row, the laws of Alabama allowed the state to carry out executions by either lethal injection or nitrogen gas inhalation. I did not know this was a thing before this story.
Oh yeah, yeah. They just started doing that.
As early as 2018. Yep.
Hmm.
It made it possible for Grayson to choose either method to facilitate his impending execution, for which a date had yet to be set. In June of 2024, so we're going just to last year now, 5 months after Alabama's first nitrogen gas execution, a motion by the Attorney General's office was filed to seek approval of Grayson's second death warrant. The representatives of the state asked for Grayson's execution to be carried out with nitrogen gas, which was the third time where Alabama would possibly carry out this kind of execution. Grayson had reportedly elected to be executed by nitrogen gas inhalation in 2018. However, there were lingering concerns over the effectiveness of the nitrogen gas execution, as it was reported that the first person put to death via this method had convulsed in seizure-like spasms and gasped for breath minutes before falling motionless. Although government officials defended this method by stating there were no major problems arising from this method and it was, quote, textbook. On August 15th, 2014, the Alabama Supreme Court approved the death warrant for Grayson, and a court order was issued for the Alabama Governor, Kay Ivey, to authorize his death warrant. 5 days after the Supreme Court approved the death warrant, Grayson's death was scheduled to be carried out by a nitrogen hypoxia on December 21st, 2024, making him the third person in Alabama to face this type of execution after Kenneth Eugene Smith on January 25th and Alan Eugene Miller on September 26th. So there was a 30-hour time window that was set between midnight of November 21st, 2024 and 6 a.m. of November 22nd, 2024 for the execution to be carried out. Days after the death warrant was issued, Grayson's lawyers filed a legal motion and sought to stave off the impending execution, citing that Grayson should not be put to death by nitrogen gas due to potential problems with the new execution method, noting there were witness statements that Kenneth Eugene Smith had allegedly experienced seizure-like spasms, and this could amount to cruel and unusual punishment since it did not guarantee a painless death for Grayson. On October 19th, 2024, it was reported that Grayson's lawyers proposed amendments to the nitrogen gas execution protocols to ensure that his death would be carried out smoothly. They also requested the execution not be conducted via nitrogen hypoxia. On November 6, 2024, U.S. District Judge R. Austin Huffaker Jr. Rejected Grayson's appeal to cancel his scheduled execution. Subsequently, Grayson made a follow-up appeal to the 11th U.S. Court of Appeals against the decision of Huffaker. And on November 18th, 2024, the appellate court dismissed Grayson's appeal and upheld the ruling of Huffaker. I know we've got a lot here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. You
Great.
said Huffaker. All I can think of was, would you buy furniture from a place called Unpaid Huff Hines? Sorry, I'm still in Joel and Ethan Cohen brain.
Grayson's final avenue of appeals were an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court and a clemency petition to the Alabama Governor, Kay Ivey. On November 21st, 2024, hours before Grayson was set to be executed, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected his final appeal and allowed the execution to move forward as scheduled. When inquired about Grayson's execution, which was scheduled a week before Thanksgiving, Governor Ivey replied, quote, "Did Carrie Grayson give any consideration to the fact that he robbed Vickie DeBlieux and her family of now 30 Thanksgivings?" During the final week before execution of Grayson, Vickie's half-brother Mike agreed to be interviewed about the murder of his sister. He stated that he had few memories of his sister, but he found it terrible that she died in such a horrific manner and believed that all four murderers should be sentenced to death, although he understood that the death penalty did not apply to Lewis, Trace, and Kenneth since they were minors. On the other hand, Vickie's daughter, Jody Haley, who was personally opposed to the death penalty, did not agree with the execution. She noted that Grayson had been abused in every possible way in his youth and said that, quote, society failed this man as a child and my family suffered because of it. She added, quote, murdering inmates under the guise of justice needs to stop. No one should have the right to take a person's possibilities, days, and life. So Carrie Dale Grayson, at 50 years old, was put to death via nitrogen gas inhalation at the Holman Correctional Facility on the evening of November 21st, 2024. He was pronounced dead at 6:33 p.m. Um, he is, as of 2024, November 2024, he's the 22nd person executed in the United States for 2024. He awaited execution at the William Holloman Correctional Facility. The prison warden read, or as he awaited, the prison warden read Grayson's death warrant and offered him the opportunity for final words. In a defiant response, Grayson told the warden, "For you, you need to fuck off." After the microphone was withdrawn, he continued to shout obscenities, which were reportedly went unheard. According to Alabama Corrections Commissioner John Q. Hamm, Grayson had been verbally abusive to staff throughout the evening, prompting officials to limit his opportunity to speak further. Grayson was strapped to a gurney and fitted with a respirator mask, and as nitrogen gas flowed into the mask, replacing breathable air, Grayson raised both middle fingers in a final act of defiance. According to witnesses and official sources, the nitrogen began to flow at 6:12 p.m., and Grayson moved his head, shook, and tugged at the restraints on the gurney. He clenched his fists and seemed to make an effort to gesture once more. His legs covered in a sheet lifted off the gurney at 6:14, and after several minutes, he gasped for air in a series of more than a dozen breaths. And at 6:21, he stopped breathing, and the curtains to the room were drawn at 6:27 p.m., 6 more minutes before Grayson was declared dead. Governor Ivey released a media statement soon after the execution of Grayson, and she said that the life of 37-year-old Vickie DeBlieux was horrifically cut short by Grayson and his accomplices, and described the criminal conduct of Grayson as heinous, unimaginable, without an ounce of regret for human life, and just unexplainably mean, which made him deserving of the death penalty. Governor Ivey also added that the death of Grayson by nitrogen hypoxia bore no comparison to the violent death and dismemberment of Vickie, and offered her condolences to the victim's surviving kin, hoping they could find final closure and healing with Grayson's execution. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall similarly announced that the death penalty was justified in Grayson's case when he conducted a press conference shortly after the execution of Grayson. He stated that justice had been served in this case and expressed hope that the remaining family members of Vickie DeBlieux could find solace in the state's effort in finalizing the course of justice for their heartbreaking loss. So let me get a sip of coffee here real quick. There. Now that I've had my last cup, my sip of coffee, let's discuss the ending of this, the execution. Here we go. I'm getting on my soapbox. You ready?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I may be unpopular for this, and I may have people who listen to our show that hate me for this. I am not, I repeat, not in the camp that believes that the death penalty is cruel, and I do not believe that it is unjust. I don't. Is it a deterrent to heinous crimes such as this? I don't
No.
know. I don't know.
No,
Hang
it
on.
is not. It has
Hold on.
never been.
Oh, hold on. We don't know that. I
Yes, we
do.
fucking do.
No, we
We
don't.
do. Yes, we do. You know what would be a deterrent? A fucking guillotine. Use a guillotine.
That's the death
That
penalty. That's,
exactly. That is a deterrent. Strapping someone to a gurney and pumping them full of chemicals,
hold on.
that
I
doesn't
didn't,
scare
I
anybody.
did not say that. What I said was, I do, I believe that, excuse me, I believe that the death penalty is a deterrent. I did not say what type of death penalty. The death penalty is a deterrent.
No, it's not.
I it's justice for taking the life of another.
No, it's not. It's not
Many,
justice.
Many relatives believe the death penalty is just and necessary for their lives to move forward.
What the death penalty does is make us feel better for a bad society. The
What
death
the
penalty
what the
doesn't
death
fix
penalty
anything.
does, what the death penalty does is make it so the criminal cannot commit the act of murder again.
It still doesn't fix the underlying problem. All we're doing is committing murder to make ourselves feel better. That is
Uh,
all we're doing. So if we're going to do that, and I don't believe in it, but if we're going to do that, let's do it correctly. Make it public and gory and terrible.
well, that's what I
If
said.
you're going to murder someone by the state, which is what you're talking about,
Yes,
then do it fucking right. Don't half-ass it. Don't do it because what you're doing is you're taking revenge on someone for an ill of society.
yes.
And yeah, they shouldn't have done what they did. I don't agree with that. That's wrong. But it doesn't help us.
And I disagree with that. Go back and listen to episode 102 about Kenneth McDuff. His death sentence was commuted and he was paroled. He began killing again 3 days after his release. 3 days.
Okay, again, the problem isn't when they start doing the killing. The problem is what made them that way in the first place.
Oh,
That is
I don't
what we are not addressing.
I don't
And
disagree with
the
that. Well, hold on. I don't disagree with that. We need to address that. We've got to find what turns these people into killers. But
yes.
but the simple fact of the matter is we don't have that yet. So here's the punishment for it.
Well, okay.
There's a statistic in the UK that over 30 killers between 2000 and 2010, when they were freed, killed again.
Okay.
So
Again,
so yes, there was something wrong with them, but we don't know what's wrong with them. I'm sorry. You decide to end somebody's life. Why do we need to let you keep living?
again. So you are saying you are advocating for state murder because that's what it
Yes.
is.
Well, sure.
You're advocating. So what I'm saying is, if that is what we are going to do, and again, I don't advocate for it. Let's do it correctly. Strapping someone to the gurney and putting a mask on them and letting them suffocate it out. No, fuck that. If you're going to say we are going to commit an act of murder by the state, do it publicly and horrifically.
As
If
I
you
said,
want,
as I said, I am for the death penalty. Period.
no,
I don't care.
okay.
The
What I'm saying
the
is you
method
can't
is
be. Yeah, what I'm saying is you can't, and I don't mean to, and I don't mean to attack you on your soapbox. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't believe that. I don't think understanding them is and why they do what they do and how to stop them from being made. I think that is way better for us as a whole than killing them. But if
guess what?
you are going to kill them, do it right.
Guess what? We had 30 years to study this fucker. 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
The actual carrying out of the death penalty takes so long. We have
Yes.
ample time to study these people.
Yeah, and it's a waste of public funds. It is a waste of public funds. If you're going to do it, do it. And if you do it wrong and you get the wrong guy, i.e. Randall Dale Adams, if you get the wrong guy and you end up killing the wrong guy,
which happens.
If you end up killing it, who gets charged for that murder?
It happens. That's a failure of society. But
exactly. But if we don't,
happen.
What I'm saying is, if we don't kill them, we never have to run the risk of that problem. If we study them, which is I think what we need to do, and we're not doing that.
We're not. Well, that's not true. We're not doing enough of it.
Exactly.
We're not doing enough of it.
But if we're gonna kill them, just kill them. Do it right.
Well, and that's what I do not disagree with you on that. I have no problem with altering the death penalty, but I think the death penalty is just the actual sentencing someone to death. I don't have a problem with at all. I agree with you. I don't think it needs to be a calm, nice, easy death.
No, do it. Well, and honestly,
Vickie DeBlieux didn't get one.
But I mean, it's the law. It's yes, I feel for Vickie DeBlieux, but that's not how the law works. What we are doing is committing an act of murder. We are robbing someone of their life. So if
because
we're okay with that,
because of the law, because of the letter, how the law is written.
it doesn't matter. We're still robbing someone of their life.
Yes,
And,
we
and,
are.
and honestly, I don't think it works as a deterrent at all. And if you want it to work as a deterrent, because that's the argument for it,
Hmm.
do it as a deterrent. You either chop people's heads off publicly, which is painless because you no longer feel anything when your head is removed from your neck.
There's some theories out there that the brain continues to process for a short amount of time after that.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. But you don't feel
Maybe.
anything
Um,
because there's no nerve endings.
so here's a case for retribution. Robert Macy, district attorney from Oklahoma City, he described the need of concept for retribution in one case. In 1991, a young mother was rendered helpless and made to watch her baby as her baby was executed. She was then mutilated and killed. The killer should not lie in some prison with 3 meals a day, clean sheets, cable TV, family visits, and endless appeals for justice to prevail. Some killers just need to die. And that's where I agree with that. More Americans favor than oppose the death penalty.
Well,
60,
oh yeah, hey,
60%.
hey, man, 150 years ago, a lot of Americans favored slavery. That don't make it right.
Um,
You
oh,
know?
no,
Hey,
and I understand that, but 60% of Americans do favor the death penalty.
hey,
Um,
like I said, if that's what we're gonna do and we're gonna do it, let's do it right. And when we finally find someone that we've executed has come up for execution, had been executed, somebody needs to stand trial for that murder. It either needs to be the cop that grassed him up or the DA who knew better. Put them up for execution as well. Because if we're going to do it, we need to do it all the way. Either we don't do it or we do it right. That's what I'm saying.
um, so that's a difficult one. If someone
Is it?
gets, it is. So let's talk about this one a minute. So if someone is found innocent because of DNA evidence 20 years later,
Uh huh.
how can you go back and convict the cop or the DA that
What does it
tried the
matter?
case or arrested?
What?
Because
Okay.
I'm getting there. Hold on.
What does it matter?
I'm getting there because they had enough evidence to convince a jury this person was guilty.
Okay.
You know,
Okay. So say that. Do we then convict the jury for being wrong?
and that's ridiculous, and you know that. You know that's absolutely
It.
ridiculous.
What I'm saying is it's a slippery slope either way.
I
So
disagree with that.
either we do it or either we do it all the way or we don't at all.
You absolutely cannot go down that path, and society's never gone down that path that the jury of the peers or the jury would ever be guilty of
Again,
this, even though they were found not guilty
what
later.
I'm saying is you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
I absolutely can. I
No,
can
you can't.
absolutely stand here on this soapbox and say I 100% believe in the death penalty. I do believe it's a deterrent, and I do believe it's just. I can have it, and here I am. I'm having my cake and eating it too. The death penalty is out there. I do absolutely think it's a deterrent. Um, a, and it's when I read about a crime like this. This is
Oh, I
the
agree
ones
that the
I'm
crime was
talking about.
horrible.
It was
What
heinous.
what I would
Um,
rather do though is prevent the crime in the first place. And that's where we need these people under a microscope. That's what I'd rather see.
well, and we talk about this all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. When there is this goes back to the argument we've not the argument, but this goes back to what we've talked about almost since the beginning of this show.
Oh yeah.
Mental health in this country is horrible.
Uh-huh.
Reporting mental health in this country is horrible.
Oh
We
yeah.
see that there's problems with these people. How are we not mandating some mental health? I think, granted, it's not a science, but it's out there. The McDonald triad, that
Uh-huh.
theory. When you see these kind of things, we are potentially at that point breeding a murderer. You see these keys.
Yeah, you're putting it's like you're building like you're building a house
Yes.
or something with Legos, you know?
Yeah.
You start with that foundation and then you build on it and then something happens and then something happens and then something happens. And when you get to the top and you're finished, you built a serial killer. And we do it a lot.
I know. I know
We
we do.
do it a lot.
And so that's where we need to be is we've got to get mental health fixed in this country somehow, some way to prevent these from happening. But since we do not have that, sorry, I believe the death penalty is just because we don't have that. I don't want to sit and wait for 50 years while we fix mental health to let these fuckers ride off my
We
tax
spent the last
dollars.
50 years dismantling it.
But I don't
We
want to
spent the
sit them
last
riding
50
on
years
my tax dollars
dismantling it.
to be able to again, as Robert Macy, the district attorney, as he said, so that they get 3 meals a day, clean sheets, cable
Dude.
TV, family visits, and endless appeals. I don't want to pay for that.
Yeah, well, I also don't want a dirty cop grassing up somebody to get killed. And that happens a lot too, as you well know.
Yeah, and if it,
Or
and
dirty
if it
DAs who know that the person they're going after isn't the person they need to find, but it makes the mayor happy. So
and
that's why they
and
go
when you
after that
have
dude.
those need to be charged. Absolutely,
Exactly.
100%.
And
But
if you're going
that's
to put that first person up for the death penalty, that person needs to go up for it too. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying don't have. I'm not talking about the jury. The jury was being crazy, but
yeah.
those people who knowingly did that committed an act of murder.
I don't disagree with that, but
Put them
those
up for the same charge
those are going
if
to
you
be
really want to make it a deterrent.
but those are going to be a little those are going to be more of the outliers than this
No, they're
case.
not. No,
Oh
they are
yeah.
not. And I guarantee you, they are not in Dallas County in the 1970s when they popped Randall Dale Adams. There was a rash of it. A lot of those guys would end up going free.
You're not going to find that big of a percentage of that. You're
Oh no,
not.
yes you are.
I
Yes
guarantee
you
you do
are.
not have more than 50% of the convictions for murder in this country. You are not going to have more than 50% because of dirty cops and
Well,
dirty
okay,
DAs.
say it's 1%. What does it matter?
Well, 1%, I will take that 99% of the good cases. I will
What
take that
what
99% of the good DAs.
what I'm saying is you can't have it. I'm not explaining this right. I am so sorry.
I
Um,
and I'm not asking for it for both ways. I am asking for that 99% of the good convictions. That's what I'm looking at. You look at anything in this that we talk about. When you talk about the majority of an issue, that's what we're talking about, and the majority of these are good. We don't have. Oh my God! You know what? The funny thing is, right now, this exact second, I'm hearing it right now. Whatever Sunday this is that this show comes out, whatever week that is, that in Austin, Texas, Keith Chenoweth is listening to the show. He is screaming at this show right now.
yes, he is.
I know he's screaming at me. I know he's screaming at me. I know how he feels
Well, he
on
thinks
this
I'm
issue.
crazy too, so I guarantee you he's screaming right
No,
now.
he's screaming at me. I think he's on your side on this one. It's just so funny. It just hit me as when Keith hears this show, he's gonna scream at me.
Love you,
Um,
Keith.
but this is my belief, and I'm sorry, this was me getting on my soapbox. I believe in the death penalty for these 99% of these good cases. I believe it is just in this. I believe that it does give the families a sense of closure, and I believe it does give the families um, a sense of closure for years of detailed accounts in the press and social media of their loved ones' gory, murders while the murderers sit out a life sentence or endlessly appeal their convictions. I am on the side of that 99% that is good. Do we have a 1% that's bad? Sure. Um, and reform has to happen there. Do we go to a fact where if we find out that you know that cop planted evidence that ended up giving that person the death
Convict
penalty,
him of
do
murder and
do
execute
do we
him.
convict them? Maybe. If we
No,
find out
no,
that the
no,
DA.
maybe. If we find
Oh,
that
no,
they
no, no, no,
did
no.
that,
You can't say no maybe when I just said maybe because it's my opinion. Maybe. Is that the right thing? Maybe. I don't know. Will that be, will that ever be? No, it's never going to happen. That's never going to happen in our society. I'll never see that. Should it be? Maybe.
yes.
I can at least come to the maybe side of that. Should it be? I don't know that that's necessarily the punishment that it should be for them, but maybe it is. Um, that part I can't answer. That's the 1% that I can't answer because I am sitting on that 99% where it is a good conviction for somebody that did a heinous crime. I can sit on both sides of the fence. Do I believe that it should be death penalty because they killed one person? I can sit on the fence on this. If they went out and they stabbed somebody, they got in a bar fight, they stabbed somebody because it got out of control. They stabbed somebody, they killed them. Do I necessarily think that person needs to get the death penalty? Probably not. Four boys go out and take a young woman into the woods and brutally beat her, rape her post mortem, cut her up, show that they have absolutely no value in human life. Yeah, take their life. Sorry. That's where I am on that.
I just
I can see shades of gray.
Yeah, I disagree that we shouldn't take their life. I think we should study them to figure out what made them and stop that from happening. But if we are going to take their life, and let's do it correctly. Let's do it publicly. If the idea is to make it a deterrent, let's make it a deterrent.
And
That's what I'm saying. That's what that's.
there's going to be those out there that are going to tell you that the death penalty is not a deterrent no matter how you do it. Um,
Well, I can tell you right now, it wasn't a deterrent for these four fellas.
no, well, it's not a deterrent for it's not necessarily a deterrent for anybody out there, but it could be. There are people out there that could very well kill, knowing that if they are caught, they get the death penalty. They just don't care.
They don't care.
Um, and there are those that
So,
do think
okay,
about that and won't, or do
my
think
my,
about
my
that and
question
still
is
do. I don't
my
know.
my question now is if it's not a deterrent, then what is it? Is it revenge?
But there are people out there that won't kill because they don't want to be killed.
Then that is a deterrent.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that
It
is a
can be a
deterrent.
deterrent. I think there are people out there that do a double take. They get so mad that they have murderous thoughts in their head, but the rational side of them goes, if I get caught, I'm going to be put to death.
No, I don't want to. I don't know.
I think it can be.
And
I
honestly,
would,
to me, prison seems like it would be way worse because at least with the death penalty, you're done.
um,
There's a lot of there's a lot of bad stuff that happens in prisons, and we really ought to talk about that too.
well, but on death row, generally they're segregated in their own cell. They're apart from Gen Pop. They don't have to deal with the potential riots, the potential stabbings, shankings, beatings up, things like that. Can it
Assaults.
assaults, rapes. Can it happen on death row? Sure, it can. But in general, they are in a cell by themselves, waiting for either their appeal process to go through or death. Um, so I don't know. I said when I got on my soapbox, I very possibly could be very unpopular with
Yeah,
my
I know, but this is
my
going to be a
thoughts on
great
this.
episode, man.
I
There's some
knew
controversy.
I knew you would disagree with me from the beginning. It's okay that you're wrong. Um, but this is just how I feel about it. I do believe in the death penalty, and I especially believe in it here for this crime. That's just where I'm at. Anyway, so stepping back off my soapbox. That's the story of the murder of Vickie DeBlieux.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that or the rousing I wouldn't go as far as say argument, but animated discussion.
Yeah. Oh shit, we've had animated discussions like this for years. No, don't worry, folks. I still love him. He's my hetero life mate. So
Hetero
you know,
life mates, baby.
you know. So so folks, don't think that we hate each other on this.
No.
We have had we have had animated arguments like this over who is the better Star Trek character. Um,
Yes, we have.
that was really the impetus of this show in the first place is just these kind of discussions. And I'm just giggling to myself. I want to be in the room when Keith hears this episode because he's just going to jump my ass. I
Whoa,
know he
wait, wait,
is.
wait, wait, wait. We can figure out when this is coming out.
I have to do that. I think I'm hopefully going to see him in a few weeks. He was talking about coming down, and I'm going to have to tell him there's an episode where you just have to listen to and maybe call me afterwards and yell at me because I know he's going to.
You know,
I
we
know
he can
I know
always listen ahead of time before anybody else does.
I know his thoughts on the death penalty, and I know he's going to be yelling at me. So anyway, so I appreciate that. Thanks all for sticking with us on that. We appreciate all of you. That'll take us to the end of another recording week. You can find more information about us on nerderyandmurdery.com. That's our hub. That's our website for everything about us. You'll find links to this episode, pictures from this episode, as well as a link to our YouTube page, which has videos, which Zig so often updates.
Well, thank you. Yes, there are several snippets and scenes from all three of the films. You should check those out, and then you should go and watch the movies. They're all available for streaming right now. Go see them.
Outstanding. You can also find the link to our merchandise page, where if you wish to show off your nerdy or murdery fandom, please do consider purchasing something from there. You can also find the link to our Patreon. That, along with our merchandise, helps with the costs that are associated with the show. Our patrons help donate with costs to keep us uploaded, keep our website going, everything that goes into keeping this show on the air. So please do consider donating either through merchandise or becoming a patron. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
And my dogs are going off in the background once again. It must be the Amazon guy.
Yay!
Last but not least, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us and helps others find our content that may be looking for the information that we talk about. So with that,
I have been Zig with your nerdery and murder. With your nerdery.
and I'm
What the hell is wrong with
Jeffrey
me?
with your murdery.
Cue the music.